that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a G.
Dude, what's up, doggy? Hey, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited you're here. So, for those that don't know, Senior Brett Baird, I would say top 1/100% of the originators in the country. But really more than that, like I really think of you as a father, a husband, an amazing business person, really an entrepreneur, and somebody that I've looked up to, man, and really respected from a distance for a while. And as I've gotten to know you, man, it's probably my respect for you has only increased. You know, sometimes you wonder about people, right? Like when they've had some success, like are they going to be an asshole or like, you know?
The jury's still out on this person. You meet, someone every once in a while, and you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
Same for you. Yeah.
But I've always really admired your approach, dude, and I think you've got the hustle in you, man.
Yeah.
So, do you think that's something that like people are born with, or do you think that was developed in you over time?
I think a lot of it's, everything I think to some degree is a learned skill, right? Like you can get better at certain things, but if innately you don't have a work ethic and you're not willing to get out there and really push for the first X amount of years, it just ain't gonna work out. Yeah. People love to see the result, and they're like, oh, well, you had it come easy, or whatever, or you had the big account, or you speak Spanish, or one of a million things.
The overnight success.
Yeah, it took 20 years, 15 years to like start to build, and now I'm in Europe just about 21, but it took a long time, and it took a lot of hours. Yeah.
So tell everybody that doesn't know who you are, kind of, who is Brett Baird?
Yeah, so born and raised here in Denver. I knew from a young age I wanted to travel, so the first time I ever got to go abroad was my freshman year of high school, like without my parents, right? Okay. So there's an exchange student at George Washington High School here in Denver, Pericles, from Greece, clearly, and became super fast friends. He claimed to be a really good skier, this kid, and we were like, you're from Greece, you can't be a good skier. And then we went skiing with Pericles, and he was the best damn skier I've ever seen, ever, to this day. Like, he was on the Olympic team.
Wow.
Even
they have mountains in Greece?
Well, they go to the Dolomites.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, so we became like super good bros with him. And then his family was like, you guys treated my son so well. Can Brett come to Greece for 60 days, his freshman year summer?
Jeez.
And then so it's just me and my buddy raging around Greece for my first international trip. And then, shortly after that, my junior year of high school, I moved to Spain, lived in Bilbao, so northern Spain.
Okay. Love the Basque region?
Yeah, it's the Basque country, absolutely. Like, best food in the world.
That's up there.
Yes. It's just, it's phenomenal. Super safe. It's interesting. It's unique for sure.
Did you know any Spanish prior to going to Spain?
I had 1 year in high school, which was actually how I met Pericles, my buddy from Greece, was in Mr. Gregory's Spanish class, where I would cheat off Pericles every class. He knew how to learn a language. I had no idea. So I had 1 year of broken high school Spanish, and then pulled the trigger, and then ended up with an amazing host family over there. They have 8 children. The mother's English, the father's Basque. I think the child that spoke the fewest languages was 4, and I think up to like 6 of them speak like Basque and Arabic and yada.
Isn't that amazing in Europe how
well, it's just so close. It's like, all right, if you went to Aurora, they just exclusively spoke Polish.
But it's almost like parents and just the education system there teaches you got to know multiple languages.
You need to, right? Like to your neighbor. Yeah, absolutely.
So you learn the language that, if you're in Italy, you learn Italian, but also like English is the global language, right? So it's like you got to know English, and then you might travel, you grew up in Italy, but you might travel and live in Spain, study learn Spanish. And
it's interesting to see how good they are at it. And so I was there for a year, loved it, and then ended up coming back, finished high school at Cherry Creek, and then moved back to Spain, stayed for another 3 years. That was in Sevilla, that was down south, studying flamenco guitar, so that was a little obscure and interesting.
Yeah, they have different dialects.
They have, like north and south, world of difference. Like the southern Spanish are like much more, it's like almost like, it'd be tough to understand, like some Cubans are difficult for me to understand.
Right.
Yeah, so they just like eat a lot of the letters, and it's really like short form speaking. So it takes a while. I'm really good at it now, but it took some getting used to. And I always tell the story, when I was living over there, one of my buddies kept coming to visit me, my buddy Joe, and he was wearing like outlandish Italian blazers in my other shoes. I was like, where are you getting all this money, Joe? What are you doing? And he's told me he was in the mortgage business.
Okay.
And I had no idea what that was. So I like,
how old were you?
I was at that point, I moved back when I was 18, and then I moved back to Denver when I was like 22. Yeah, so I was there for three and a half years, that second trip. And I came back and then got hired on with my buddy Joe, like 48 hours later, got in the mortgage business, and it's the only thing I've ever done as a job, career, as an adult.
That's amazing, dude. So were you were immersed in the culture and the language, so you just sort of, was there just one day where you're like, holy shit, like I'm speaking Spanish?
It was like dreams, I think, is really when...
Interesting. You started dreaming in Spanish.
I started dreaming in Spanish. And the weirdest part was like, I would dream about friends or family that don't speak Spanish, and they spoke Spanish in my dreams. I'm like, all right, I think that's really good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And it just became life, you know. I didn't hang out with any American people. I had a Spanish girlfriend, you know, and just learned very well.
It's an amazing culture.
It's just, you know, I think it would be hard for me to decide between, you know, if I in a perfect world, like it would be between Japan, Mexico, and Spain.
You took a trip to Japan recently.
Yeah, I went out, ran the Tokyo Marathon on March 3rd, which was just phenomenal. That was first marathon I ran was Colfax, which was last year. So I did 3 fulls last year. I did Colfax, Chicago, and then this year I did Tokyo, and then got a little injury. I've been hurt before, but I've never been injured
running
from the marathon. So I crushed my old time by like 22 minutes. I ran 3:14, which I ain't that petite.
Which is crazy fast, dude.
It's like me and 140.
That's
the pictures are hilarious.
Really? Like the dude from Ethiopia. They're like keeping up with
People are like looking at me like, what the hell is going on? It was outrageous.
Dude, that's awesome though. Good for you. But you trained for it.
I trained for it. Yeah, I train religiously. You know, I'm running 55 miles a week, 5 days a week. And then in between that, this time I think I got injured because I wasn't really lifting. I only exclusively ran because I wanted to get light. You know, I think Chicago I ran at about 200 pounds, and I really wanted to be about 185, which is kind of where I ran. But
how much weight did you lose?
I started out like the first time I did 75 hard, I was 225, 230.
Okay, and what's now?
185, so I'm down 50 pounds.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and like I always say, you know, it's not a weight problem, it's a height problem.
Yeah.
I can height way easier.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, being 5'9" barely, like on a good day.
Dude, that's always really impressed me about you too. Like every time I run into you, we connect. You're like training for something, right? Like you've got something going on. In fact, I think it may have been you, dude, or when I first like originally heard of 75 hard, and then like probably most people I looked it up and procrastinated on it for like 2 years, and finally ripped the Band-Aid off. But I think you were the first person where I was like, 75 hard, right? And but then it was like I knew you were into lifting. Then I knew, and then you started training for the marathon. Is this something you've always done, or was this a result of being coached? Was it something that
I think a lot of it? Yeah, I always wanted to do something harder than the stuff that I was doing, right? And I won't rip the Band-Aid off. And I'll just kind of like let stuff linger unless it's a really big goal. You know what I mean? Unless the pain's great enough for me to be like, all right, I got to do something outlandish enough to really like get out of this rut or whatever, or train for something hard. So that was the original 75, right? Because I was drinking a ton, COVID, we were having just monster years. We had a builder account, about all that. Went from 600-700 loans a year to 150, and that was tough, especially to have the big account kind of walk away, and the girl that said she'd never leave you, and then it happens, and I think mentally that was really difficult, and I didn't like resort to alcohol, but I just like to party, and so kind of looked at that, and then just woke up one day and I'm like, God, I'm just so tired of being tired. I'm tired of being lethargic, tired of being fat, tired of like not having great relationships. And then I was like, all right, well, what's something really hard? So the pain was great enough to like really look for the goal. The goal was the 75 for the first round. But for me, it's not so much about the 75. because I did the first one, and day 76, I was in Tulum.
Yeah, partying.
Yes.
Like, eat whatever the fuck you want, drinking.
Going nuts, right?
Yeah.
And the 75 is not about the 75. The 75 is about 76 to forever. Right? And that's where I think a lot of people get confused, because they get through it and they're like, oh my God, well, I'm going to go celebrate and crush 9 pizzas and have ice cream and drink some liquor, you know? And, you know, discipline stops that day. That's when it stops. And then you've got to start being disciplined again, or just kind of continue. And I'm not saying like you have to be straight edge or never have a drink or commit to doing this 2 times a day forever, but you got to have some sort of plan afterwards, or you're going to end up like me, and then you're going to have to do it all over again, which, you know, I think 6 months later I did my second round.
Dude, I mean, it's a very similar story for me. It was the same thing, dude. Like, I was, and I've grown up as like, I'll call myself an athlete. Like, I grew up, I was in, I went to the Junior Olympics in martial arts.
I know that.
Yeah, black belt in Taekwondo.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, this was a long time ago. I don't train now, but,
Gotta get
gymnastics. Yeah, no kidding. Everybody wants me to do that. I don't know.
You gotta make this happen.
That'll be a good piece of content.
That'd be great content. Just when the real goes wrong.
Yeah. Jerry Springer. So anyway, so dude, I'd always been really big into athletics growing up. I was a gymnast growing up. I played baseball. I played football. So team sports, individual sports, but I don't know, dude. And it almost pisses me off looking back at it, because it's like. But when COVID happened, there was just this like subtle. I was just disengaged subtly, and it was very cunning. It was very insidious. It wasn't this like big shift. It was just, you know, COVID happened. We got super busy with business, bought a house, started a renovation, had 2 kids. There's a lot opened the office. There's a lot going on, but I just found myself like, dude, I'm fat. Like, I'm overweight. I don't feel good. I was tired. I didn't have energy. I'm like, this isn't who I fucking am.
Yeah.
And so finally, I told my wife, I'm like, we have to rip the Band-Aid off. We have to do something. And for me, it was extreme. It had to be extreme. It couldn't be like, I'm just going to dip my toe in. You got to go to the gym 3 days a week for 20 minutes. No. It was like, no. So, I forget where I was going with that, but it was probably the best decision I made. But you're right. Like, the day after, same. Like, I ended up eating, I think, pasta. But right after that first day of just trashing myself, it was like, man, that's
not
like,
worth it.
I don't feel good. Yeah. So like a week later, I went right back to paleo. I've been on paleo ever since again. 6 days a week working out, 3 outside at night. You know, and we just decided, hey, what can we commit to 100%?
Yeah.
And so that's what we decided, but still doing the 10 pages a day. Like, not the progress photo, but.
And I like, you know, our stories are pretty similar in the fact that it's not like one of us got arrested or like we blew up our relationships. It wasn't like just this one crux defining thing that made us do something crazy, right? It was just a culmination of little things that kind of ate away at us, right? And there just was like, it's kind of scary to think about it like that, but there wasn't one thing that was just like, this is, I can't put there's no specific thing I can point to say, this is what specifically made me do it. It's kind of just everything, right? And there was like no real bottom.
For sure.
You're kind of close and you're like, all right, well, I don't want to be about this anymore.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And, you know, the work instills the worth, right? You talked about discipline. And was this something that you felt was giving you the ability to control something when there was maybe a sense of like not being able to control your business quite as much?
I think so, probably. Yeah, it'd be like, you know, a teenage girl controlling her eating habits because that's what they can control.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it was within my grasp, and I'm like, all right, well, I can't get the builder back. They own a bank, right? There's none looking actively for a relationship right now that we can think of. We made 9 million phone calls. Well, what can I wrangle in? and it was me personally, right? I think we're also crazily obsessed with everything exterior, and I got really into, we were talking about that earlier, into like buying crazy clothes and Louis Vuitton bags and 13 watches at one point, like APs and Rolexes and all this crazy stuff, and the Lambo and all this crazy stuff, and I'm like, all right, I'm sick of like exploring outer space, and I think it's time for a little bit of inner space.
Yeah. Well, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a rung on that pyramid where having the things is a part of it, but then you kind of get those things and you realize that I'm not a better person because of it. I don't necessarily feel any better, right? In fact, they say like as soon as the high you get is everything leading up until the purchase.
100%.
The second you make the purchase, you're like, you feel empty again.
And then you do it so often, you do so much of it. It would be like if me and you went to Del Frisco's 6 nights a week and crushed tomahawks.
Yeah.
Well, there's no such thing as a goddamn treat at that point. Then you're just gluttonous. And all you have is, you wake up one day and you look around and all you have is all these just things. There's just stuff everywhere, right? And that for me, like, it consumed me. I'm like selling all of it. Like, I wear a Garmin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I drive a regular car. I don't need a Lambo right now. Like, maybe one day, sure. But I think I at least got caught up into the hype, and I think it took something like this to kind of unravel that and make me really figure out what's what. And also, I can't lean on people around me. I can't hammer on my team or, expect for my girl to be healthy if I'm, 50 pounds overweight and crushing a bottle of whiskey in the afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's just leading by example, but it's also like the fulfillment you get from doing it. Right?
Hard work.
Creating the daily disciplines, and like even with 75 Hard, right? It's my story, yours, everybody I talk to, it's sort of like this. Why do you think people tend to put off doing hard things when really it's like you do the hard shit, and that's what makes you feel good, and that's where you learn, right? Like you don't learn anything when you're doing 700 loans a year and you've got a team supporting you, and it's like money's just falling from the sky.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you're learning more when shit is not going well.
100%. You learn a lot more about yourself. I mean, there's some beauty in a little bit of pain. And I'm not saying like crazy pain, but like we need to make ourselves uncomfortable or we're just not gonna grow. We just won't.
Yeah.
It's like hanging out with the same group of people forever and never getting into a bigger room.
For sure.
I had a class last night at the office, and it was a move up home buyers class, and this 21-year-old kid, really sharp little guy, comes up and he's like, oh my God, like I didn't understand any of this. I've gone to these stock classes and I've done all these things before, but no one's like really boiled it down and made it super simple for me. Like, thank you.
That's awesome.
That kind of stuff is fulfilling.
Yeah.
As opposed to, going to buy another watch or
Dude,
shoes
like,
I'll never wear.
this is why you see a lot of people that become super successful financially.
Yeah.
Like there's only 2 paths, right? Once you reach a certain level, and one of those paths is complete destruction.
Yeah.
They lose everything. They're addicted to drugs. They're addicted to women. Because they get to that point, they realize that that's not what they thought it would be, and so they're looking for something else to fill the hole. But really, the something else to fill the hole is giving it away. You only keep what you have by giving it away.
100%.
Right? Like helping other people. And
and actually hard work, like getting up and sweating in the morning, getting outside when it's uncomfortable, and really like on the day. Like when my girl, the day that she doesn't want to go to the gym, she's crying in bed because she doesn't feel good or whatever. I'm like, that's the day you need.
For sure.
Like that's the day you get your ass up. When it's sunny and 75 degrees out, it doesn't mean that much.
Yeah.
But when it's shitty out and you don't feel great, like that's when
the breakthrough happens.
Yeah,
that's when you level up, right?
Yeah.
All right, dude. So go back because I'm interested. You kind of touched on how you got introduced to the mortgage business.
Yeah.
So when you got into the industry, had you done sales before or anything?
I sold when I was at Cherry Creek High School, my senior year of high school. I sold women's shoes.
Really?
At Nordstrom in Park Meadows Mall.
Dude, so I've heard a lot of people that have been in retail, that have been at Nordstrom, even Marcus. A lot of them go on to do phenomenal things. Did they just have a phenomenal training program, or like what did that teach you?
It just taught me I didn't want to sell shoes.
Yeah.
But it taught me how to sell. I did that for a while, and I was also valet.
Okay.
I've always loved cars, and we were at Morton's downtown, and that was just an awesome job. It's like when Ray Crockett played for the Broncos, and he'd pull up in his Ferrari, and it was awesome.
Huh.
So both of those teach you different skills, right? Selling shoes is actual sales. And then, buttering people up to get a tip as a valet is a different
kind of sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So those were that was pretty much really all I did. I had some odd jobs in restaurants and so on and so forth. But the mortgage business, when we got back, we had two really good mentors when we started. And this was the first refi boom, right? 04.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first refi boom. And both of the bosses or the owners of this brokerage that we were at, they told us not to chase refis. They're like, go after realtors, call realtors, call realtors, call realtors, right? And then so it was like a boiler room set. There was 80 bros that were servers and 24-hour fitness dudes and just all these kids, all men, in a room, basically with phone books, just hammering the phones. And whoever would set the most realtor appointments would get $100.
No kidding.
Yeah, which at that point was $1 million to me. So I'd always go for it and I'd win it most of the time. And then I had really limited success up front because I was so young. The average realtor was 45, 50 years old. I was 21.
How did you position yourself? Right, because there are a lot of young guys getting into the business that, I think that there's a lack of self-confidence and their own self-worth or ability to add value or sell, and I've seen it in a lot of guys.
Mentor, you always got to have a mentor, you know what I mean? And find a niche, because I was attempting to sell the regular, old white dude realtors, and they were like, well, you're super young, you're great on the phones, thanks for meeting me, but our clients are pretty sophisticated, I know you're new at this, I can tell, you're so young, you're green, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's just not my cup of tea. And so I was super frustrated, and I was gonna quit. And literally I was at Cameron Loco on 8th and Federal, and I was eating some tacos there, alone, just drowning my sorrows and some massive plate of tacos.
That's my kind of guy.
Real down. I go to the local bar, just at the taco shop alone, in the back.
I'm gonna quit. Give me 6 months.
Give me 6 tacos. That's exactly right. So when I was there, I saw this. It's called Costas Magazine. They had a little thing with the magazines in it, and I opened it, and it was all these young Hispanic agents, dudes my age, and so I was like, why don't I speak Spanish, so I kind of put two and two together.
That's crazy.
And then started calling these guys, and 100% of them met with me. Everyone, because that was in the days where there were some really unscrupulous people in the business, and people were stealing from clients, and then they'd move back to their village wherever they came from, and no one would ever hear from them again. It was awful. And so, the first to bridge the gap of trust, they're like, well, are you on the phone? They're like, are you white? I'm like, I am, as a matter of fact. And they're like, so you're from
Did you know at that point that you being white was going to help you?
Not until I really started meeting with people, and they were like, all right, well, you're from here. You're not going to take money from my people and head back to Juarez or wherever, you know what I mean? Wherever.
Yeah.
And just dip with all this money, which was crazy. And it was super sad at the same time. And I'm I can't believe these super humble families that have been here working forever aren't getting a fair shake from their own countrymen. It's garbage. So I wanted to.
And back then, dude, there were straw buyers all the time, right? A ton of fraud going on.
It was a ton of fraud. I mean, I saw a HUD back in the day when there were HUDs. And this is when houses were a couple $100,000, right? And, Section 32 was a clause in there, and you could charge whatever you want. And these guys were getting charged. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
These guys were getting charged 10% origination on a refi. Super humble dude. Cowboy hat, just the sweetest people in the world.
Yeah.
You're gonna charge $19,000 on a $190,000 loan. And like that stuff kept me up at night, right? And then so, I started doing a little bit of business with these guys. And when it really changed was when I met Tony Martinez. Tony's to this day, like we're like brothers. We'll like fight every once in a while, and like won't talk for 30 days, and then we're best friends. I mean, like it's a 20-year relationship. We're brothers more than anything. And I remember we were at Sushi Den, and I'd met him that night. We were at Sushi Den, and I was telling him I'm the best lender in America. Like clearly lying. I closed like 4. You're so lucky that there was some sake involved in that. It was the first time I ever had jalapenos on sashimi. It was a new world for me, right? Yeah. So he's like, all right, well, I got a deal for you. Like, let's meet. I think this was a Saturday night. Let's meet Monday in Cherry Creek at some Italian place, right? So we meet Cherry Creek, and he brings me a paper file, and he's like, well, all right, here's your shot. Like, he was a big agent at the time. He worked for Del Rio. And that was like the first big Spanish team in Denver. They were doing 5-year deals a year out of that team. They absolutely dominant. And it was his fix and flip. He was the owner. So I'm like,
give it a shot.
All right. And he's like, this won't go FHA. No one can figure it out. And it's right when Wells Fargo came out with this program called Emerging Markets that was to compete with FHA.
Okay.
And I read like 600 pages of guidelines.
Oh my gosh.
And I figured out that the loan would work, and I closed the loan. And he was like, "You're my guy."
Wow.
Like, you're my guy. So that's when I really started not even take off, but get consistent and not want to quit. Right? We didn't really take off until we got into coaching. Gavin and I went to core coaching, and it was in New Mexico, this event. And I saw this guy Scott get up on stage and tell everyone he'd made $5 million a year before, and I'm like, if that guy can make $5 million, I can make $50 million. Like, let's be real about this. Love Scott. But like, it was just amazing to see people really doing it. And
how were you introduced to the core?
It was Brian Pintar.
Okay, cool.
Gavin and Brian were going to go. That's when we were at Citywide. Gavin and Brian were going to go to the core, and his wife at the time, her brother was coming into town. So his brother-in-law was coming into town, and she's like, "You're not, like, you ain't going." It's like, it's that simple. Like, you cannot go. Like, you have to be here with my family. You're not going. So he already paid for it. I had to borrow money to pay him the $2,000 or whatever it cost at that point. I mean, I was like,
But there was some value in going. They created the value.
Huge value.
Willing to do that.
Yeah, because Gavin and I, we got out of there and we're like, boy, are we stupid. Like, we need to hire teams immediately.
You just had no perspective on that whatsoever.
We were technicians. Like, I could read
flying by the seat of your pants. Like, you'd seen some success. You were good at relationship, but never really had system. Structure.
Or even, I remember back in the day, Megastar was big in Denver.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Remember when they were pretty big, and to work there, you had to close $1 million a month in volume. And I was like, how in the world do these guys close $1 million a month? They must be Superman. It was just otherworldly to me. It was just unbelievable. So you start to get out of the technician role, and then start to become more of an operator, and then keep hiring and so on and so forth.
Well, what was the hardest part about that for you? Because I remember Gavin trying to recruit me years ago.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, dude, if you're not going to come work with me, you at least have to check out the core.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I got into the core, and because you always hear agents talk about, well, I used to work with this person, but then they got too big, right? Yeah. And I never got to talk to Brett anymore, right? I had to talk to his team, and I don't really like that. So how did you deal with that? How do you continue to deal with that? Or do you just have a different perspective of the quality of agent that you're working with?
I mean, I'm giving a talk here next month with, this month actually, with Shayla.
Okay. Oh, cool.
And
I know Shayla from way back in the day.
Really?
Shayla and I know each other from when we were 19 years old.
Oh,
we were both in the same network marketing company.
Way.
Track Alliance, dude. Yeah, that was the name of the company.
Unbelievable.
They went out of business. They were,
sure.
I think some fraud or something.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah. I mean,
But that's where I learned to sell. That's where I met Shayla. And then fast forward, I see her at a core conference, I'm like, Shayla?
That's amazing.
So it was great.
So I don't know if this will come out before that, not to spill the beans, but some of the premise of the talk is like, yeses and nos. I didn't really start to feel good about anything until I started saying no to things, because I said yes to everything for so goddamn long. Late nights, partying, not taking care of my health, eating whatever I wanted, being gone, 6 months a year on vacation. Like I just said yes to everything. To realtors that were super mean to my team, toxic relationships.
Right.
I just said yes to everything.
Because it was business.
Because it was business. And in my personal life, right? And then so I think when I started the 75 was the first time in a long time in my adult life where I made myself start saying no. Right? Sure. And then so you get to a point when you kind of boil it down to its most basic element. All right, so if I say no to this, it's going to free up time for a yes that's actually worth a shit and impactful. Right? So what no's are we going to get through? What time is it going to free up for the yeses, and what are those yeses going to yield me? Right? And so that's when we had to reframe, right? Because we went from, like I said, we had a 40-person team, we were doing 800 deals a year, and now I'm doing 15 to 20 deals a month. So you kind of got to figure out what's important, and you got to make sure that you have the right people rowing the boat in the same direction, and that people actually appreciate you and you actually appreciate people. I'm like a long-term relationship haver. Like Tony, for example, sure, we fight like brothers, but like I'm not some salesy guy with Tony. Like we go to his house in Mazatlan, we're homies. You know what I mean? Like with my agents, they don't really, the ones that I'm close with, that I do the majority of the business with, they don't care if it's me taking the loan app or not.
Sure.
Because I have the actual relationship with
them.
Yeah.
Like, dude, by the way, that is something I've always struggled with, and now I'm like, is that just a story I'm telling myself, because one thing I know I'm good at is like I can get the appointment.
Yeah.
Right? I can build the initial relationship, trust, get them to like me. They'll send clients to me, but where I have a hard time is like you're trying to grow your business, so you're always going after new referral partners.
Yeah.
Because somebody gets out of the business, somebody's not doing enough production, somebody finds, you and they like you versus me, and so they start sending deals to you. So there's always an element of like looking for new referral partners to work with. And then I get sort of hung up in the like, how do I do that and maintain the quality of the relationship here and go deeper with people? And I end up getting spread so thin that I'm just like, I'm doing the best I can, but not being intentional like I probably should be. And then like the last couple of years, it's been tough too, because you've had agents that were crushing it that now, they'll be lucky to close 3 transactions this year. So it's like, are you still talking, you still talking to them? Are you moving on to...
Yeah, because I mean, in my opinion, yes. And I was thinking about this actually, something really similar the other day, and I kind of, to get in these relationships and have these relationships, I was thinking about 3 things. One, like when I meet someone, I want to see what they're into. Right? Like, what are you into? Like what's an event that where do you volunteer? What do you like to do? What's a show you like to go see? Whatever. Are you an apps guy, or do you like to go sing karaoke? Like, let me do something that you really like with you.
Okay.
Because I want to see if I even like you.
Is that the approach that you typically take?
I like that.
Like, you take an approach where it's more of a friendly approach initially?
Yeah, like, let's hang out. Let's see if we like each other.
And how are you landing the appointment? Like, just because I know there's going to be people listening to this that are like, what's your script?
I mean, there's not like an exact script I use.
But let's say you're going after a listing agent, right, that you're in a transaction with, or maybe it's like the buddy lunch kind of a thing.
Yeah, with a listing agent, it's really just about giving them super concise, clear information. And if there's a problem, you gotta let them know, right? Everyone wants to hide it and then fix it and be Superman at the end of the day. If I see smoke, I yell fire, right? I had one the other day that we ended up pulling off miraculously. That was like a transcript deal, and they filed both years and yada yada yada, right? And the agent was phenomenal, and she could have lost it, right? And I would just call her and I'd joke with her and be like, "Hey, listen, it's only Good News Friday. Are you ready for something?" You're only getting good news from me today, Shannon. And she was dope, and she was receptive. So by just having them realize that I'm not sitting there selling them something, Like, hey, listen, you seem cool. Would you like to hang out? Like, can I take you for a coffee? Like, it's like we get along. You know what I mean? I'm sure you got a lender. Sure, everyone does. I get it. But like on a deal like this, your lender might not have been able to close this. You know, so let me get that back. You know, but and at that point, man,
So it's like, hey, let me just show you what we do differently.
let's.
Like, hey, I think there's some synergy here.
I think there's some synergy. Like we get along.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
you know, like I'm always in the market for new friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll need strangers to be like, I think we should be friends.
Yeah.
You know, like a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. You
That's
know?
why my wife does that all the time.
Does she?
Like, that's hilarious that you asked that question, but people are receptive to that,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody, you know, especially now, dude, with social media and everybody's like in their phones and not connecting, that I think it's unique enough to where people respond to it.
100%. Yeah, people are just they're so into their own things, and so I think when you meet with someone, I like to figure out. All right, so one, what's something you like to do? Let's do that. Like, do you volunteer? Let me go with Habitat for Humanity with you on the weekend.
Are you pretty open with how much time you spend on that first meeting, or are you like super like I'm there 20 minutes
My
to
team's
sit?
doing the work. Like I'm not. No, because then it's like it's scripted. I feel like.
Sure.
If I'm sitting down and chopping it up with someone, and we may never do a deal again, but like we're having a great conversation, I'm not gonna cut that short because it's, you know, I got 9 other things on my calendar. I'm gonna make time for that because that's important and it could eventually lead to something, and maybe it doesn't.
So when you're time blocking for a new agent meeting, how much time do you give yourself?
Probably an hour and a half.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that's really refreshing to hear that, right? Because, you know, and that's what's cool about this industry, right? It's like different people do it different ways and they can be successful in different ways. But
And the other thing is like, all right, so I go to your thing, right? I like that. That's cool. Then I invite you to one of my things.
sure.
Right? And then like, hey, listen, I feel like we get along pretty well. Why don't we do something together? Like, have you done a past client appreciation party recently? How about we go 50-50 and get all your guys in the room and tell them how important they are? You know what I mean? So like, I'm gonna do yours. Like, if that works out well, come with me and let's do mine.
Yeah.
And then let's do ours.
Is that one where they're doing yours also personal, like events kind of thing?
It could be anything.
Or is it like, come to this class I'm teaching?
It could be come to a class.
Okay.
For me, like right now, I mean, like running's my thing. I take people running all the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's like, are you? I had an agent hit me up yesterday. And he's like, you know, I'm a little heavy right now. What shoes are the best? And I'm like, meet me at a Runner's Roost on South Colorado, at 1480 South Colorado Boulevard. We'll get you on a treadmill. We'll figure out what your gait is, and then the guy will give you 2 or 3 options, and I'll tell you which one I'll go with. How's that sound?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a totally different approach than like the typical.
How long will that take me? I'll be there for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once he gets the shoes, I'll be like, all right, like, you want to go out and use them? Like, let's go to Wash Park. We'll meet you on Saturday. I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? And then so they're included in something that's special to you, and it may become something special to them.
Yeah.
You know, if this guy all of a sudden gets fired up and loses 50 pounds, you think his wife's ever going to want him to use another lender?
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Ever. Right? So I think a lot of it's about also helping people get out of their ruts, because a lot of people are in them and they don't know how to get out. And me and you, we've been real down on our luck and we've been real fucked up before. Excuse my language, but and then we pulled ourselves out by the bootstraps, and a lot of people don't know how. You know what I mean?
So that's really what this whole show's about, dude. It's like, I feel like the whole world is kind of turned into a highlight reel. I think that there's a dark side to it, man. Like
it is Instagram, all this stuff. It's
depression,
fake,
anxiety, it's all up, right?
Yes.
Feelings of unworthiness and comparison.
which has always been my thing. You know, like growing up, all my buddies went to like these rock star Ivy League schools, and then, you know, and it's not to say that they haven't done anything. They have great lives. You know what I mean? But none of them like went out and just murdered it. You know, I think I probably out earned all of them except for you know, there's probably some outlier or something like that with family money.
Yeah.
But like forever, I'm like, man, these guys went to Boston College and they went to Ivy League, and like I would say
Sometimes I feel lucky, right? Because I'm like, I don't have $400,000 in student.
no, 100%, right? And you know, I mean, I did one semester at MIT, you know, Metro in town.
Yeah. Dude, you know, it's like your honorary doctorate.
That's right.
I guess I should get that
That's
too.
right. I think you can buy them these days, right? So,
I don't know.
I mean, healthy people get help, right? And some people just don't know where to start. And so for me, like, It's 100%. People talk about being in the relationship business, but I'm in the relationship business. Like, people know they can count on me.
It's like you can't think your way, dude, into a better way of living.
No.
Right? You can't think your way into feeling better. And I just like, this dawned on me because that has been the story of my life, man, where it's like, you know, like I think of myself as an intelligent human being.
Yeah,
like
you are
I should be able to figure this out, right? I shouldn't have to ask somebody for help. I think that's another like machismo thing, right? Where it's like, I don't have to ask anybody for help.
Well, I think you're so damn smart. You like, it's probably hard for you to do just because you're cunning. Like, the way that your mind works is it's abstract and semi-artistic, and you know, I mean, like you do magic. I don't know if anyone knows this magic, but it's like one of the coolest things for me to ever see. I'm like, it's just this illusion. Like, you have to think through that, and like the sleight of hand, like it's all clever. Right, so you're super clever, and you're so clever that sometimes you just talk yourself into a damn corner.
It's too clever. Yeah, it's like, I'm so smart, I'm stupid kind of thing.
Yes.
I overthink things for sure, dude, and but I had this like aha about that.
Yeah.
And, like, but then what I've noticed is, like, Tony Robbins talks about this all the time.
Sure.
It's like, you got to change your physiology.
Yeah.
Right? And he uses, I forget, it was one of his like old school when he had the cassettes. Remember, Unleash the Power Within.
Sure.
And, but he's given this example of like, dude, listen, you're down in the car and you're feeling like shit, right? Like, here's what I want you to do. He's like, but you have to actually do it. He's like, take your hands off the steering wheel, be safe about it. But he's like, throw it in the air and make it this super like abstract, like almost like a caricature.
Yeah.
And you're just throwing yourself all over the place, laughing out loud. And he's like, if you do that, even though it seems ridiculous,
Sure.
and it is ridiculous,
Sure.
he's like, that's kind of the whole point. You can't be depressed and feel like shit and then do something that's
something
that
nice.
like cartoonish and not feel a little bit differently.
100%. Yeah, he talks about change your state.
Change your state.
Change your
That's
state,
it.
right?
That's it. I'm sure that happens for you with running. It's the same thing, dude. It's
100%.
like, you know, and it's like we hear this all the time, right? But it's still, I think a lot of people want to sort of outsmart themselves,
Yeah.
right?
And it's doing stuff that's really basic. Like, the 75 ain't hard. You don't have to, like, I like it.
Super simple.
It's easy. It's a checklist.
Yeah.
And you either did or you didn't do it. And if you didn't do it, you're just lying to yourself.
Yeah, it's,
Right?
It's getting rid of your ability to have any options, right?
Yes.
It's like, in fact, I think Frizzell says zero options mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Because once you commit to it, it's like, that's it, motherfucker. Like, there is nothing outside of this. You know, I love how he talks about it on his podcast. He's like, the first rule that everybody has to understand is there's zero fucking compromises on this thing. Zero. There's not one cheat meal, cheat day. There's like, you read 9 pages, you start over, you do 44 minutes on your workout. That ain't cutting it. Whether it's snowing, raining, like, and I think at least for a guy like me, I'm like, all right, dude, that's like a challenge, but like,
it is.
But then you're right, it's a checklist. I work really well, dude, with like a challenge and a checklist and like a frame. Yeah, exactly.
They're pretty remarkable. I was out there at First Form 3
No
weekends
shit.
ago. Yeah,
Really?
with Ben Newman.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
And he had like just this awesome lineup of speakers: Jackie Jenner Kersey, Jerry Rice, Sal Frizella. Sal was
Sal,
phenomenal.
I hear Sal's amazing.
Oh, he's a monster. Like,
Just a good communicator, or
just a great communicator. Because he's the CEO, I think.
yeah, he's CEO.
Yeah, he's CEO.
That's great.
Just to see, you talk about standards. Mm-hmm. It was unfucking believable. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable. Like, everything. They don't have a cleaning crew at the building. The building's 186,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And they're opening building 2 now, which is 150,000 square feet. And then they're opening building 3, which is 130,000 square feet.
Jesus, dude.
Which I think is like more experiential. I think it's going to be like a shop where you go and buy stuff.
Yeah.
And probably, I think, a gym like their gym, but for public use. And
Okay.
actually get swole at. But
Dude, that's sweet.
his people were picking up after everyone, like these dudes and girls, like they cleaned everything. They cleaned the bathroom. Like, Sal went off about the toilet seats. And if you're a man and you pee on the toilet seats and you don't wipe it up, there's a chance his daughter's going to sit on that toilet seat and you're fired. You're gone.
Yeah. Dude, okay. This is so funny you're bringing this up because there was I think it was a podcast I was listening to with Ryan Stewman. And Ryan Stewman was talking about how he had a tour of the facility, and he was there with a couple other influencers. I can't think of their names. Yeah, hardcore closer. But he's like, man, like the leadership and the culture there is on a whole other level. He's like, I watched, and I forget the guy's name he was with, but Ryan's talking about, I think there were 3 of them getting a tour with Andy. And this guy next to him, they all got bottles of water, and this guy like spilled some water on the floor. And Ryan's like, and I watched him look at the water that was spilled on the floor, and then like we moved on with the tour, and he didn't do anything about it. And Andy's like security guard or something came over and like wiped it up, and then like left, and you didn't know he was there barely, but he went and cleaned it up.
Sure.
And so anyway, Stewart was giving him shit about it, right?
Yeah, of course.
But that's like the level of excellence that. I mean, that's so admirable, dude. Like I think about that shit even for my team, right?
100%.
Like, how do you create that?
It's through you doing it.
Yeah.
It's through you doing it. Like if you're doing the hard shit.
Example.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said earlier, you can't expect anyone to do some shit you're not willing to do.
Right.
Like getting the tour.
But confronting it also.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like,
you gotta call it
and I think I've struggled with that. Like I'll do it.
Yeah.
But then I won't confront it if I see somebody else do it. And that's just my own shit that I got.
Well, it's just bad leadership.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've let my team forever get away with murder.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now, I let someone go recently because, great guy, love him to death.
Yeah.
We'll be friends forever. But just wasn't doing the work. Wasn't up to standard. And I can't have someone get a free pass.
Sure.
If the other 4 are working their tails off, because then it just gives everyone permission slips, right? And I ain't about permission slips these days. Like, we're either going to do the goddamn work or we ain't going to do the work.
Yeah.
It's that simple. But getting a tour of that gym and even seeing...
Tell us about that.
Just how meticulous. Every weight, has a number on it, on top, for first form.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pulled the 10-pound weights back, they're all stacked exactly to 90 degrees.
No way.
Every weight is super symmetrical. It's just perfect. Everything in the gym, and that's what they talk about. They're like, if you put a weight back in properly, or don't re-rack it or do it perfectly, chances are you're screwing up in other areas.
It's like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
And I like that. I like the concept of that, right? And I love it. And it's romanticized, I think, a little bit. I think there's plenty of gym bros that can stick to eating meticulously and have 4% body fat and be swole that can't stick to a business plan.
Yeah, they can't come make money.
There's plenty of billionaires that cheat on their wives.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're really got to make goddamn money.
For sure.
I think you're going to be really passionate about things that you actually love, and then other stuff is going to slip through the wayside. I like it, and I think it's largely true. Right? But I don't know, I just don't think it's completely as absolute as, I was giving it credit to be absolute for a long time. And I'm like, well, maybe not 100%. But, the standard piece of it, that's their standard. And everyone knew their role.
So explain the difference between an internal standard or a standard around the office or with your business or your own personal daily disciplines and habits.
Yeah.
So I think of those as being standards, right? But then what about we were talking about, Lambos and Rolexes and that kind of a thing. And do you think that setting a standard of I don't know how to say that, higher end things, right, that you is that a totally different thing than setting personal daily?
I think some of it, there's probably some overlap, right? Having nice stuff is cool. I don't dislike it. I'll probably have another Lambo at some point. But, and I sold that car 6 months after I got it because
I was pissed, dude.
I know. Everyone was mad about that one. But, here's the thing. That, I did that out of sheer leadership. I could have kept the car.
Yeah.
I could have, paid it and then, I didn't have to sell the car. But I can't. Times were getting really tough and things were skinny, so I can't sit there with a straight face and tell my team, hey, y'all should be cutting back right now.
You gotta buy an exotic.
And I'm rolling around in a Lamborghini. What kind of example is that? So, that was the standard for me. I'm not going to live outlandishly and outside of my means and, tell them to be cutting back on their bills. I've seen leaders, people chugging bottles of Dom as we're laying off people. Like it's just not for me.
I think it's the right approach. I think that there's also the thought that like, should you be lowering your like ability or standards to make somebody else feel better?
I don't think so. I think that you shouldn't rub things in people's faces.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have that big house in Tulum.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I'm not gonna sell that house because my team members can't afford a mansion in Tulum.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Right.
I'm gonna take them to the damn mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And show them like, all right, if you guys really work hard and save your damn money and don't do what I did, you could have 10 of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's more experiential, which I'm way more into these days than consuming.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the only shit we're going to take with us are those memories.
Yeah,
like the
for
rest
sure.
of it's just, you ever walked into someone's house who died?
Yeah.
And what is it?
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of shit.
It's just, Yep.
It's just things.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I'd rather like go and do the nice meals with them or, you know what I mean? Like take the trip, do that stuff, then, you know, have 15 Louis Vuitton bags.
Yeah, experiences, man. There was just actually somebody that Oprah was interviewing about some doctrine on happiness or something.
Sure.
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, these experiences is what we remember, right?
It's
not
something we think you're going to take.
Not the things you buy or
No,
the things
none
that
of
you
it.
purchase. Because ultimately, it's like, okay, you're working hard and you get these things, but ultimately, what are the things really for?
Yeah.
Right?
And a lot of it, for me, you know, the car stuff, like I'm a car guy, I grew up a car guy. Like that's one thing, right? And the rest of it was probably just to feel better in a moment of weakness. You know, it's like grabbing the piece of pizza.
For
It's
sure.
like having the drink. You know, it's the easy thing. And like you said, it's something you do and you're just like, well, that, you know, it was cool to go to the store and get hyped up about it, but now I don't even use any of it.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's just all collecting
sitting
dust, like a bedroom full of shit, just collecting dust. For a Louis Vuitton skateboard that was $2,500.
I saw that thing. I saw
I
that.
have that.
Well, it's a good question. So, was it just because you were like, I can? Or was there some like it, because for me, I was just talking to my wife about this last night.
Sure.
You know, she's like, why do you like all this shit? And I said, you know, like, I'm not in a place in my life yet where I've got $100 million and I'm thinking about legacy, right? Like, I'm thinking about the thing that just gets me excited. But that, and I'm okay with that because that thing's motivating me to work hard, right? But I said that, you know, when it comes to having nice things, it's something for years, dude, that I did because then I could show it to you and you could, this was my delusion, right? My perception was you would like me more. I was more valuable because if I have the ability to have the nice thing, it must mean that I've got some kind of value and I would get that validation from somebody outside of myself. Which is sad, dude. And I've done a lot of work on that with myself. And she's like, yeah, but you still, she's like, you still want to buy all the nice things. I'm like, yeah, because the thing I realized about myself is that I actually like it. Right? But no longer am I doing it to make you
different motive.
Like me. Right.
You're doing it. And like, again, there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of nice stuff. I have a bunch of nice stuff. You know what I mean? It's cool. But, you know, it's like you said, it's the motive behind the, like, why do you have it, right?
Well, I think we're now in this age, especially with content, where people, sometimes you have to give people what they want before you can give them what they need. So a lot of people are still attracted to the shiny things, but what's actually respected is the person that's done the work and has accomplished the result regardless of what they have. Like, dude, look at Hormozy. Right? I mean, the guy's flying private, and he's got, I'm sure, some exotics and all this stuff, but you never really see it.
No,
right?
no,
You're just impressed with his intellect and what
he's
he's accomplished.
so smart. Like
so smart.
There's like he's the one that I want to track down and like have lunch with.
For sure.
Like he's beyond.
For that.
What's that?
I think we can pay him for that.
I think probably
yeah.
I mean,
25,000 is what he charges for, I think, 1 hour.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than buy a watch.
100%.
Yeah, I think-
Way more valuable.
And you'll take it with you.
Yeah.
You remember that forever.
Yeah.
Right? I had a buddy that had lunch with him recently in Vegas.
Really?
Yeah, and my friend's super sharp. Yeah, 9 or 10 exotics, local guy. Younger than me. Smart. Old folks homes.
What? Oh, really?
National.
Interesting.
Yeah, real bright guy. And he said that he is every bit as sharp as you would think, and maybe a little bit more in person. Just charismatic as the day is long. But he's done the hard work, like both mentally and physically. Like you look at him, he's a damn specimen.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And so, I don't know, I think that stuff rubs off on people more these days. Like, if someone looks me up on Instagram, an agent, and they're like, oh shit, this dude was just in Tokyo running a marathon. I was going to Berlin to do his next marathon. Like, that's the shit I want to be involved with.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be around cool, dynamic
People doing awesome shit.
People doing fun shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, look at my car. I got a ton of money.
Right. Totally.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So, all right. So, talk a little bit about how. We talked about like getting an appointment with an agent, sort of your initial approach with an agent. How did the builder thing happen? Was that like a conscious like, hey, there's just more zeros behind it? If we can get a builder account,
business to like bigger accounts are easy to deal with innately because it's business to business. There's less emotion involved.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So we got plugged in through one of our buddies. He was a title guy, and then he got hired on at the builder, and he got us an interview with one of the big guys in the company who was in town, and it was hilarious. Gavin and I were sitting, I think it was like the Westin up north.
Okay.
So we're sitting there and we're like telling this guy about like we're giving away cutting boards at closing, and he was like, I don't care about like, what the hell are you guys talking? I don't give a shit what your gifting program. He's like, can you close really difficult clients at a very high volume? And of course we're like, absolutely. That's kind of when you lean in and yes. And it's right. And so we got our first community. And they had 2 other lenders at that point.
Were they interviewing other lenders?
They interviewed a couple. Yeah. And just by the grace of God, we got in with them. And we got our first community and worked our tails off. And then,
But did that individual ever tell you why they picked you guys versus the other lenders?
I just think that they liked this better.
Relationship. Yeah, they liked you better.
They liked us
Was
better.
there anything you did strategically for them to like you better?
These guys were really anti like gifting and stuff like that. Like I wasn't gonna send them $1,000 Mont Blanc pen and be like, hey, we're gonna use this to sign the next 1,000 deals together or something like that. Like they just weren't really into that. They were 100% performance based. Can you guys scale? How quickly can you scale? There were weekends, because they only sell houses on Saturdays and Sundays. There were weekends we'd wake up with 90 contracts in our inbox.
Jesus.
In a weekend.
God. So, but that must be difficult when you have somebody that's just that, like, matter of fact about everything, because it makes it difficult to build a relationship.
And
if something goes wrong,
100%.
like why are you more valuable than
It
the
was
next guy?
it was intense. We'd have our mortgage calls on Wednesday from about 8 a.m. through 5 p.m., 6 p.m.
With the builder?
with the builder. And they
Going through contracts? Or what?
spreadsheets, and you would highlight. It was the most intricate Google Doc, and they would drill in and be like, "Well, why wasn't this VOE ordered?
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah.
why?
Detailed processing.
And like just drill, and then sometimes like people would get up feeling like, garbage. Like it was so aggressive. But then you look through the tabs and you're like, shit, we got 500 under contract.
Yeah. You're like,
I'll take a little abuse. Like I got thick skin and a short-term memory.
So once you had that account, was that when it was like, it's almost like getting your first commission check where you're like, holy shit.
Well, like
we
the
got
kind
three
of
of these.
lights turned on.
Yeah.
We got our first community, and then I think our second community was in Seattle. And then we got like a couple more in Washington, got a bunch more in Colorado, and then they're like, all right, you guys are like graduating, like we'll get you into Florida. So we got into Florida, we got into New Mexico, we got some turn down stuff in Arizona, Vegas.
Same builder though?
All the same builder.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all, Vegas, we were getting stuff from Pennsylvania, we'd get some turndowns from the Carolinas, I mean, just Texas, like all over, because we were the most aggressive lender.
Was that forcing you to go out and get licensed in all of these
I
places?
was licensed in all those places, and I was, Gavin would be on the big calls with like the CEO.
Sure.
Right? And I was the one in the field, like there was like 4 years, like flying every week, to go go through pipeline in person in some small village outside of Seattle.
Okay.
Oh God.
You were traveling once a week to visit all locations and the
all
sites.
over. Yeah, all over, or for trainings with them, or grand openings, or they would do quarterly meetings. It was
Pretty all-consuming.
full-time job.
I mean, with that type of volume, it wouldn't matter, but at the same time, like, if that becomes 100% of your production, like, did you guys try to balance it out somehow with agents, with other builders?
Not too much. Because this specific builder, they had attempted to get into the mortgage business twice before, and they're like, that was the dumbest thing we've ever done. We are never going to go down that road again. It was so stupid, like, we swear, and then the music stopped. 10 minutes before, like, their national sales call, Gavin got a call from this COO. And he said, hey, listen, we're going to end up doing a joint venture. We really appreciate you guys' service. Go ahead and finish in your pipelines. We don't need you guys on the call today. Like, we're announcing it today. And Gavin called me, right? And I just remember I was like hungover. Gavin called me, like, it just dropped that on me. And I'm like, well, shit. Like, the music stopped. And I neglected my bread and butter. I was getting some realtor business, but we were doing 5 or 10 deals a month because I was doing 80 or 100 on the other side.
Can you remember, like, so you get that phone call?
Yeah.
Gavin drops this huge bomb.
Yeah.
Do you remember, you said you'd, like, just woken up, you were hungover, but do you remember what you were thinking? Like, what was your immediate thought when he said that to you?
It was like Tiger King. He's like, I'm never going to financially recover. Sell the Lambo. Sell. I was pretty distraught, because I felt like we were.
Did your heart sink? Was it like panic a little bit?
It was a little panic. Like I was just numb. I was like, kind of like they promised. Like we had an agreement. We had a gentleman's agreement that this was never going to happen, and lo and behold, it's happened. Right? And that, it crushed me. I was super, that's when I got really heavy. Because I was finishing out the pipeline. I was still, printing money. And then just like got, bad vices, not doing well emotionally and mentally and physically. And it crushed me. Right? And that's when I, probably 6 months after is when I did the first 75. Yeah.
Interesting.
Decided to rebuild.
Yeah. So with something like that, right? Like I've shared this with, I think with you, but Gavin for sure. But back in 2009 when the market crashed, I think I had 8 foreclosures, several million in personal debt. I was living in a $2 million home in Southern California.
I didn't realize.
Watching it was like $120,000 Escalade get taken.
I didn't know.
I was walking everywhere, super unhealthy, highly addicted to Oxycontin at the time. But there was definitely like a survival mechanism that went into place. And I remember I was just so triggered and like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do because banks stopped lending, right? And like,
overnight,
what am I going to do? Start a fucking call center and do loan mods and hire on? Like, no, I wasn't going to do that, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember like running from my house every day to the gym to work out.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that like, it just got me out of my head. It got me focused on my body.
Yeah.
And sometimes, man, like I was in an extremely dark place, man, for that period of time. And that's actually when I came out to Denver and met Gavin. I was so down on my luck, dude. The way that I met Gavin is, I don't know if you shared the story, but I called a Craigslist ad because I was like, I didn't have my license out here. I was just like, I had a little money. I was given cash for keys in my house. Yeah. So I had a little bit of money, came out here And I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, well, I don't know, guess I'll look for a job, right? Like, I've really never had a job. I've been fired from every job. I'm not a good employee. I'm just not.
I ain't the best.
Yeah, I'm not. But yeah, anyway, so I called an ad and it was Amber that picked up
No
the phone.
joke.
I had a conversation with Amber and she goes, well, let me talk to Gavin. And they called me like, you need to be an originator. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm like, I know, but I got to make money. And like, I don't. So anyway, fast forward and here we are.
That's crazy.
We're working together.
I met Gavin through, I got a spam email from him. I was working for this small bank, right? I left, I was a broker, and these guys said that they were a lender, and they had a line, and it was all smoke and mirrors, and it ended up being kind of like a Ponzi scheme. Like it was not a good look, right? The guy went to jail for a long time. And so I like move over to this bank, and I closed like 4 loans or whatever. They owed me like 20 grand. And that was like my only $20,000 in the world. You know, my mortgage payment was $1,400. Like I had to borrow money for it. It was like awful, especially knowing that I'd close these transactions, right? And then I get some spam email, and I used to go and knock on their window every day and be like, "Can you all got my check? Like I need my money."
Yeah.
And then so one day I get spam email from Gavin, and I remember like the headline, and it was like, "We're growing, are you? No overlays, direct lender, yada 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 yada." And so I look at it, and I'm like, yeah, sounds cheesy, but the address is the building where I go to collect my damn check every day, except it's on the 4th floor and on the 1st floor. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna stroll in. I didn't even call. I'm just gonna roll in next time I go and ask for
That's so you.
So I roll in, and then he comes out, and we're shooting the shit for a little while, and he's like, but yeah, you're bilingual? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you're doing 3 loans a month? I'm like, 3 or 4 loans. And he's like, I'm doing like 10, and I don't speak one language. You should be murdering me. And I was like, all right, well, you want to do this? And then we just became bros.
That's amazing.
Just like started right then and there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, right after the core, like Gavin's caught me now, you know, he's focused on production now. But, you know, for 10 years there, I smoked him year in and year out. You know, so that's what we're getting back to. Yeah.
Dude, so the reason I brought up that story about myself and like with what you went through, like, is there ever a time now where in your mind you're like, I never want to feel the way that I did when the builder dropped me, and like, but like more about the industry, like how do you keep yourself in check or like focus on what you know and what you do best versus, because dude, I know you're an entrepreneur, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and I know you've bought and sold other stuff and you've made money in many different ways.
Sure.
And that's something that's always been really intriguing to me because I'm the same way, right?
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking about stuff, but I've also got to be careful, dude, because it can be super distracting. It can definitely
It's a Coach Carter, like the main thing is the main thing, right?
That's it. But how have you like kept yourself or even convinced yourself? Because I'm sure there have been times, dude, where you're like, maybe there's something else.
You know, for me, it's like, it's as simple as looking at my team, you know, and it's like, I'm not going to abandon these guys who jump ship because something sexy comes up. Like, these guys have given me, Marie's been with me for 11 years. Brittany's been with me for 10 years. Like all these, yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. I mean, since we were young, you know, like they've all been with me for a long time. I'm not going to turn my back on them, you know. And like, no matter how tough it gets, I think something for me personally, that physicality. Like if I'm up and I'm moving and my mind's right and I'm sweating and I'm hydrated and I feel decent, like the builder's not going to get me down.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, if you're in an unhealthy place innately to begin with, mentally and physically and spiritually and everything, right? And then shit hits the fan, well, you ain't gonna react well.
Well, it's like when shit hits the fan, you're like peak physical condition and
then I'm like, bring it on.
mindset. Yeah, you just tend to look at things glasses half full, and like everything's an opportunity, and it's you just reframe everything to 100%. Serve you instead of like, my life is over, I'm the victim. It's like, all right, dude, so we're losing the builder account, so how are we going to replace the income? And that becomes the dominant thinking.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it takes time. You know, all that stuff takes time, and all of this, you know, this wasn't, and none of this was overnight.
Yeah,
You
sure,
know?
sure.
I mean, like I'm still working through all this like mentally and how to process everything and how to react and in an appropriate way and raise the bar on myself and raise the bar on them and do it appropriately and you know, show everyone that they're loved and you know, continue to build great relationships, which eventually, like, I mean, that's what it's going to be. This is like this opportunity, I think, coming up in the next few years is going to be bananas.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
And so, like, you know, there's people out there right now thinking like, well, shit, I want to get out of the business or I don't feel good about it or whatever. And it's just one of those things where like, you just got to kind of hold on, you know, just got to hold on. And if your mind's not right, it's going to be really tough.
For sure.
And my mind's not right if I'm not physically engaged and lifting weights or running or doing whatever it is, like taking a walk outside, like that's, you know, walking my dogs twice a day. Like that's the shit I really love.
Getting some sunlight on your fucking skin.
Yeah. Vitamin D.
Yeah, the
you know?
vitamin D.
Yeah.
But what role has coaching played? Because I know you were big in the core for many years.
Yeah.
You saw a lot of success from the core
Yeah.
and what you learned there. But I remember when you stepped away from the core respectfully and you said, I hired Ben Newman.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I have another good buddy of mine. He's actually my partner in Fight Fingers.
Yeah.
He's the black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
And he's being coached by Ben.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
Chris,
that's awesome.
Chris Mayer's his name. He's up in Longmont.
No joke.
He was a former, I guess he's still a real estate agent. That's how we met.
Sure.
Dude, we met from a cold call. So for anybody that says cold call
right.
doesn't work, I mean, he's one of my best friends, dude. And business partners and this other thing.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's coached by Ben Newman. And so, but I've never talked to either of you about like what it is you like about his style. What do you get from Ben?
I mean, I met Ben like about 15 years ago at an NCAA tournament here in town.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Through our mutual buddy, Northwestern mutual guy, Armin. And he made the connection and we just became fast friends and we just always were in touch, but never really bridged the gap of coaching.
Together, yeah.
And I needed something other than more mortgage coaching, right?
For sure.
Like, cool, I get it. I know how to build a team.
You had the tactics, you had the play, you had the
I've
systems.
got it to like an ability, you know, or a level that most people haven't done it. So, you know, like with the core, it was great, but the core, no one in the core ever had an account that sent them 800 deals in a year from one account.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't coach to that. So, all right, you know, we got dumped. I was down. I was fat. You know, I was in a real bad spot, and I hit Ben up and I told him how I felt, and I was just like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "I think we should start coaching. Like, let's work on some stuff." And we've just been super close ever since. Like every time he goes to Mexico to speak, I go with him, chaperone, make sure he's all right.
Yeah.
You know, like this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we become super, super close. I like that he's not involved in the industry. I like that he's about mental fortitude. He's not a motivational guy. He's a coach. Like he's like get up. He leads by example more than anyone. No, like, you know, in my former life, you know, I could text him every morning at like 3 a.m. and I was going home by the when I was getting this text. And you know, now it's like, all right, it's like right before I get up. He's up at 3, lifting weights, sweating. Like he honors his sponsors. He loves his family. Like it's unbelievable how much he loves his wife and his kids, and there's just so many things about the guy that's admirable. And he ain't that fancy and he ain't that flashy. He just does the goddamn work. Like he's like the Priscilla guys. Like they're just like they're workhorses that do the same thing, honor their commitments, treat people right, and show up big. So I think for him, like he just pulled me out of like a really dark place. And it was through discipline.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is true, right? Like the world is not as it is, it's as you are.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And so much of it is, okay, so if that's true and it's as you are, becoming the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Is really what permeates anything you choose to do, dude.
Yeah.
So it's been cool to watch that, man.
No,
Seriously.
you too. It's cool to walk in and see you know, ripped up, lighter, feeling good, looking good. Like this is like there's more people quitting drinking than any time in history. There's more people like weaning off of substances, I think, than ever. Like now's a really good time to do it. And, you know, doing this stuff, like we're not outliers anymore with it. Like it's kind of becoming a more mainstream thing. And so I just want to continue to push myself to do harder and harder and harder shit. You know, now that back to my injury, the hairline fracture, or stress fracture in my femur.
Right.
Oh yeah. So working through that now. I should be cleared to run in about 2 weeks. And I got Berlin Marathon.
Wait, how did you get the stress fracture in the femur?
Running at Tokyo Marathon.
Just like a fluke thing?
Just
What
a
do you mean?
fluke thing.
Really?
I wasn't lifting, so maybe something got weak and then something got strong.
Huh.
I pulled it out of whack.
Huh.
But like I got it at the very onset of it, so it wasn't like bad. Because then you break a femur, like you're in real shit.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of when the modern medicine got invented, was when you would no longer die from a femur injury. So I'm straight there. I went to Mexico and got some stem cells, shot in my hip, which was like epidural needle. It
Was that like amazing? Did it totally?
It takes about a month, so they're starting to take effect now, and I don't feel it anymore. So I test again in 2 weeks, and then it gives me 16 weeks to train for Berlin. I wanted to do a sub 3 hour marathon. It's
When's Berlin?
September 29th.
Okay.
So 16, 17 weeks. I wanted to train towards sub 3 hours. I don't know if that'll happen. Now it's just about finishing it. Getting back into that kind of shape and fight shape in 16 weeks. And then
So is Ben pushing you to do this stuff, or is this like your own?
this is my own thing. Ben thinks like he loves it, and he's also like, you're not built like a runner, like injured. Like maybe we can.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Like, so you just on the marathon train, or do you think you'll switch it up? And
I'm gonna do the majors, right? So the majors are New York, Chicago, Boston, London, Berlin, Tokyo.
Yeah.
So Berlin will be 3 out of the 6.
Okay.
So London, New York, Boston.
That's awesome, dude.
Right? And the Boston, you actually got to qualify for, so I got to run a sub 3 in order to make that work.
Is that the qualifier?
It's 3:10 for my age bracket, but then they take an average of everyone that finished, and then so
Dude, that is so fast.
like 650s or something like that.
my God.
It's moving.
Like if you translate that to a treadmill,
Yeah.
what level is that on?
Oh, like a
nonstop?
650 or like I don't know 9, 10.
9, dude.
Like it's like absolutely
That
moving.
is insane.
Yeah, especially with some weight, you know what I mean? So once I get done with the 6, which should probably be 25, I think at that point I'll really look at doing like the Leadville 100.
Yeah, you're gonna get an ultra.
Yeah,
style?
why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goggins style.
Yeah, why not?
You know, have you seen that documentary with Chad Wright?
No.
Prime. Amazon Prime. Dude.
It's awesome.
Look forward. I can't think of the name,
yeah.
but it's. Well, I can't even think of the name of the race, but there's a race where it's like this huge group of people, and it's like in the fucking mountains, and they just it never ends. It's just a loop.
They just did it again. Yeah.
It's a 1 mile loop that goes for
that old dude that
last man
runs-
standing, basically,
Yeah.
something like that.
I think it's what's it called? It's that old guy that runs it.
Yeah.
They just did it, and it was the first time a female had ever finished here in the last month or so.
But dude,
It's burly.
you have to watch this.
I saw some of it.
Dude, the mindset
Dude.
of this dude is just
Bananas.
You know, I
These
mean,
guys are crazy.
Jesse Itzler
Yeah. I love Jesse.
hired him to coach him with one of his races, right? And that's where he shares the story about there's one thing you don't know about me. I never get tired.
Yeah, wow.
Right? He programmed this shit into Jesse Itzler's
Have you
head.
seen any of the Iron Cowboy stuff?
No.
Oh no?
No.
There's one on Amazon called 50/50. So Iron Cowboy, he's a buddy of mine now. Really good dude. I met him through some friends, and he's friends with Shan Lassig out in Utah. They're close. Super stud. I ran into him in Chicago at the marathon. He did 100 Ironmans in 100 consecutive days.
Oh, okay. I've just heard of this guy.
James, yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard Priscilla talking about it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I love him.
Wasn't that the inspiration for 75 Hard?
I don't know. Well, he did. His first one was 50. So it's 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days. So
That's not human, dude.
he would
That's
wake
insanity.
up. He's crazy. He's just such a stud.
That's crazy.
And just mind over matter. You hear his story on the 100, and he's like, on day 36, I fell off my bike, and my bone pulled off my shin or whatever. And I just kept going.
What the hell?
Broke a vertebrae, day 72, and it's just
Oh my God.
holy shit!
my God.
It's amazing. But I don't want to go that aggro. But I think I'd like to do some ultras. I'll probably do some 50-miler stuff. I think Leadville 100, that's what got me into running in the first place. Was Born to Run was a book. And it's
dude,
so
yeah.
at the time went out and led the 100. So I think that would be fitting at some point to do it. Ultra runners are crazy. Like I was talking to a guy at the gym recently, and I see him run like on a really aggressive incline for a long time at the gym, and I'm like, so I go, and I'm like, you a marathon? Like, how much do you run? He's like, oh, it just depends. They're so footloose and fancy free, these ultra people, they're nuts. They're not like, no, this is like, we're super measured and specific and I have to do this at this time or it ain't gonna work out. And I'm like, well, what have you done? And he's like, well, I did like the level 100 10 times.
Dude.
Like, this isn't like nonchalant shit, bro.
Dude, that reminds me of this story. This is like before I moved to Denver. My sister lived in Golden.
Yeah.
And she was like, so we were traveling out here a few years before we actually moved out here, but she's like, hey, why don't you come out in the summer do a 14er?
Sure.
Right? 14ers are big here. So I'm like, I'm training for the 14er, right? I've got all my gear. I've got my fucking oxygen for the 14er. You know, I'm at sea level in California,
Sure.
right? So anyway, I come out.
Awesome.
I've got all my fucking shit on, dude. We're doing grazing tories, right? And like, we're up 3 a.m. They're like, you don't want to be on the mountain when it hits noon because of the storms. And
Sure.
So, dude, I'm hiking up this thing. I'm like huffing and puffing, dude. All of a sudden, like, I see this dude right next to me.
Running.
Fucking barefoot in shorts, no shirt on, running up the fucking mountain.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, but that's Colorado. I feel like you meet somebody and you think you're tough shit, and then the next guy's like, I did.
It's like, I've seen guys running by people on bikes going up hills, sprinting past them. You know, I think the goat in that sport is Courtney DeWalter.
Okay.
A little gal from the Midwest. She lives up in Leadville.
Yeah.
And she's beating the brakes off all the men, like back to back 200, 250 miles, like with 3 weeks off, and then she'll go and smoke everyone in a 100-miler. She is she's like, oversized t-shirt and like board shorts, just kind of hippie-ish, that sort of shit. She was on Nick Barr's podcast, and I really liked what she said. She's like, if you want to run a sub 3 hour marathon, like there's a prescription for that. Like you run this often, this fast, this many days for this long, like you can run a sub 3 hour marathon. She's like, there's no prescription for what we do. Like there's no recipe. Like it just, you gotta, she calls it the pain cave. She's like, just go into the pain cave and I'll just run for another 15 hours.
Oh my god.
It is amazing.
That's a whole culture, right?
It is.
Group of people.
Yeah. And talk about mindset, just tough.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Last question for you.
Yeah.
Where do you think the industry's headed in general, right? Because the NAR settlement just came out not long ago.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people are afraid that a million agents are going to be eliminated from the industry. Tech is playing a big role in things now.
Tech's tried several times. This might be the one where it kind of breaks through. I'm not sure. At the end of the day, in my opinion, relationships are still going to win. Yeah. Agents are going to look for a million different ways to get paid. Lenders are going to become agents. Agents are going to become lenders. I think there's going to be a little delineation between the two. But the cream always rises to the top. I think we got, before, tech's like super good, I think we got one more run in us at least. And I think this next one, once the floodgates open, I think it's going to be like COVID for 4 or 5 years. I think it's going to be a long run. And I mean, Lord knows where it goes. I'm just focused on, the next month, the next year, so on and so forth. And 5 years it could be something totally different. I don't know. But you got to spin it positively. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm good at anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
This doesn't work out. I'm just
not true for you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I don't want another career.
Yeah.
So we just gotta, the sailors are made in storms, right?
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah.
So we're in a storm. So we just gotta toughen up and be diligent and be disciplined.
The daily disciplines, the daily habits,
the little things. That's what makes you happy. Yeah.
All right, brother. Dude, you're the man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
I love you, dude. Thank
too.
you so much for coming on the
This was
show.
so much fun.
Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, just the easiest place is probably Instagram. It's the Brett Baird, BAIRD, Brett Baird.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother.
Thanks,
Let's do it again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Every time that I see a limit, what? I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah, I had to plan it. The way I work is out of this earth. I can feel the momentum. Need it all, no fractions, dream it, then I